When we talk about small business, and I am a small business owner, I am the CEO, founder of a startup here locally in Dallas called Counterfind. And I understand what it feels like to start a business. And you understand what it feels like to ride a wave. If you ever rode a wave, you're up and down, all over the place. Sometimes you just don't sleep. But the one thing I had to understand, as far as making the transition from the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys, in which I played 13 years, to the business world was, thank you, I appreciate that. The only Cowboy fan, real true Cowboy fan in the house. But the one transition that I had to make was understanding change and accepting hard change. And I want to give you an example of hard change. Who remembers the Dallas Cowboys in the 70s and 80s when Tom Landry was the head coach? How many of us remember Coach Landry? Okay, so a lot of us remember Coach Landry. Well, let me tell you who Coach Landry was. Coach Landry was called the great innovator. Probably the greatest coach to ever coach the game of football. 20 straight winning seasons. Now understand this. If you understand this, you got to understand this in the NFL. 20 straight winning seasons. That means every season this man was pretty much in the playoffs. We all know who Bill Belichick is today, right? Tom Landry was the Bill Belichick of the 70s and the 80s. They call him the great innovator. They call him the guy he was the man who created what we call the 43 defense. And he created it in the late 60s. 43 defense, they're still running the 43 defense. Every team is running some version of the 43 defense. That's how great Tom Landry was. Not only was he a great coach, but he was great in the community of Dallas, and everyone knew him in the city of Dallas. Tom Landry was so bad isn't good, that they just put his hat up now. I mean, it's like Jordan in that Nike swoosh. If you just see Coach Landry's hat, you see it on the highway, you know that they don't have to put his face up there or say, Tom, just put his hat up there, and they say, yep, that's Coach Landry. That's how bad of a man he was. But this is the thing about Coach Landry. As great as he was, he went through 3 losing seasons at the end of the 80s. 86, 87, 88, they go through what we would call tough seasons. His last season, they go 3-13. Jerry Jones comes in. You guys know who Jerry Jones is? Jerry Jones, upstart guy from Arkansas, buys the Dallas Cowboys football team. He buys the team. The first thing he does is he fires the great Tom Landry. And Dallas goes crazy. You can't fire Coach Landry. Well, that's what Jerry does. Jerry fires Coach Landry, and he brings in a young coach, college coach named Jimmy Johnson. You guys remember Jimmy Johnson? Jimmy Johnson's a college coach at the University of Miami. Jerry goes and gets him, brings him in, again, fires Coach Landry, and he starts all over again. And the first day Jimmy Johnson takes the job, he calls in all the players, all 53 players on that football team in a meeting room similar to this, over here in Valley Ranch. And you guys remember the Randy Whites and the Ed Too Tall Jones, those great players. You guys remember those guys? Okay, so there were some of the great Dallas Cowboys players who were all under Coach Landry's regime through the years. Jimmy comes in and tells them, hey, look, I'm the new guy. Things are going to be different. Accepting hard change. Here we go. Coach Landry didn't have an off-season program. Jimmy Johnson stood up there and said, we are going to start an off-season program, meaning every day during the off-season, starting from March through July, you will train here. And not only that, but in July, mid-July, right before training camp, we're going to have what we call a conditioning test. And I want you to remember this conditioning test that he just said. We're going to have a conditioning test. And he's telling the entire team. The team says, yeah, okay, whatever. 53 men in this room. All of them had played under Coach Landry. Coach Landry's philosophy was the season ends, I want you to go home and spend time with your family. If you're from California, you go home to California and you show up for training camp. Didn't believe in an off-season program. So Jimmy stands up there and says, no, you don't go home. You stay here and train. And it would behoove you to be here. The meeting ends. I'd say 30% of the guys stayed around, listened to what Jimmy had to say. The other 70 went home. Took off. Said, you know what? Coach Landry, greatest coach of all. Never had to stay around. I'll be ready for training camp. Off-season program goes on. 30% stay. July shows up. What did I say was going to happen? Conditioning test. They have a conditioning test. They're running what we call 110s from the back of the end zone to the 1 yard line. They do it 16 times. And it's timed, meaning you better be running. Half the guys are falling out. That 70% that didn't show up in the offseason, didn't go through the training, falling out on the field. And Jimmy, if you knew who Jimmy was, and Jimmy was, he's about that tall, but tough as nails. Jimmy was on the field yelling and screaming. One guy in particular fell down. He couldn't get up. And Coach Jimmy Johnson walked up and said, "What's wrong?" The guy said, "I can't breathe, Coach." And he says, "What's wrong with you then?" He says, "Well, I have asthma, Coach." And he says, "You know where the asthma field is?" And he pointed towards the parking lot. And I can't say what he said, but he said, "You go on over to the parking lot." That entire year, he was transitioning players. The league had never seen so many players on one team go in and out of an organization. Every week he was bringing new players in, working them out to see if they could fit the mold of what he wanted. The team went 1-15 under Jimmy Johnson in his first year. 1-15. Y'all didn't hear me. They won one game. The next year, they got better. In '92, when I came in, we went to the championship. And the one thing I understood as when I came in, they talked about the history. And this is how I know this story, because they talked about the history of this organization. You had Troy Aikman and the Emmitt Smiths and the Michael Irvins. Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, they went through that 1-15 year. They knew what it felt like to see teammates come and go. But the one thing Jimmy wanted were people that were going to believe in his system. See, the players, half those players, the Randy Whites, who I love, the Ed Too Tall Jones, who I love, they didn't buy into what Jimmy was preaching because they were stuck in their old ways. Jimmy wanted people that were going to follow him. Half the guys didn't accept change, but those who accepted the change, they had to wait it out. They had to go through some rough times. Michael Irvin had to go through some rough times. Troy Aikman had to go through some rough times to see the light. So in 1992, what do? Championship. 93, people that bought into Jimmy Johnson. Championship, back-to-back championships. And then Jerry Jones stepped in with the ego, who I love Jerry, but he stepped in with his ego and he fired Jimmy Johnson, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yes. But we had a chance to win 4 or 5 straight Super Bowls. But the reason why I tell you this is because at some point in your small business, you're going to have to accept change and you may have to pivot. You may just have to pivot. Things don't always go the way you want it to go. They don't. They're forever changing. In my small business, we're forever changing. The industry never stays the same. I have sleepless nights every day. Had one last night. But I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm grinding it out. I will continue to grind it out. That's one of the reasons why we talked about they asked me to come here. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because I see it every day. I see businesses fall and fail because they're not willing to accept change. When things start to happen, they got to be willing to do so. Also, I wanted to give you what I got 5 minutes. I'm going to give you what I call my 4 C's, and I want to figure out if this is who you are. Just figure out if this is who you are. I call it the 4 C's. And I learned this in my time in the NFL. And I'll give you some of the stories about those 4 C's. Number 1, content. Content. Content is failure. Content, C-O-N-T-E-N-T. I got to spell it sometimes. Some athletes in here, sometimes I got. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm pointing to myself. But the reason why I say content is this. Content shows up, and I'm going to tell you the person that's content. The meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Content will show up at 7:05. Content will be on a cell phone while the meeting started. He'll just walk on in the meeting. He or she will walk in the meeting while the meeting's going on. Probably got headphones in. Meeting starts at 7:30, getting there at 7:35. That's content. You cannot rely on that person that's content. And if you are the content one, yes, you are the virus. Content doesn't dream. Content is not a team member. Content will get you fired. You bring on someone that's content, your job is on the line. Content will drag the entire team down. Trust me, I played with them. I had guys I played with, and there was a time where we were the champs, Super Bowl champs, and there was a time where we went 3 straight years of 5-11. And Jerry Jones and his staff, when they fired Jimmy Johnson, they started drafting content players. Just happy to be a Dallas Cowboy. And you started to see it around here. Guys getting in trouble, going to jail. You saw it. Those are the content ones. Can't win with content. Compliant. It's the next one. Meeting starts at 8 o'clock. Compliant will be here at 8 o'clock. Don't ask compliant to do anything. Like compliant and content will not volunteer to do anything for you. You guys have a team party, they will not be there to help clean up afterwards. Trust me on that. You know some compliant ones, don't we? But they're going to, you tell them to do something, they'll do it. And that's it. Project is due next Tuesday, it's on your desk next Tuesday. It's not going to be there early. Compliant doesn't dream either. And compliant is not a team member. Compliant will get you beat. Compliant get you fired too. If you're willing to scale, if you're looking to scale, you bring in someone that's just willing to do what it takes, you'll never scale the right way. Because content and compliant aren't all the way on board. I only have a minute and 30 seconds, so I got to get through this. Committed. Committed is not bad. You know what? You can win some championships with committed, because I won at least one championship in 1995. We won it with a committed football team. And I like committed. Meeting starts at 8 o'clock. Committed will get there, 7:55, 7:50. You really don't have to ask committed to do things. You don't have to encourage committed. Committed will just show up, because committed will get up in the morning and say, you know what? This is what I do. I like what I do. And I want to support the team. If we're willing to scale, I'll be there to scale. And sometimes with committed, you really don't have to ask committed to stay around afterwards. Committed will be there for you. That's what they do. They're team players. You guys heard of that before? That person that's committed, he's a team player. He or she is a team player. Do just enough. And they'll tell you, hey, I was there. You guys ever been around someone that's committed? Someone that's committed will always tell you, hey, We had an event, I was there cleaning up afterwards. That's committed. Compelled. That's the one you want. Because compelled, you don't have to call compelled in the morning and say the meeting's at 8 o'clock. Compelled will be there at 7:15. Getting work done. Compelled will bring you up. Compelled will make you better. You ever been around that person that's compelled, that they walk in that room and you say, you know what, there's something about Roger Staubach. You guys know who Roger Staubach is? Roger Staubach walks in the room compelled. There's energy, instant energy. That's what you want. That's what wins championships, is when you bring in people that are compelled, that want to be a part of success, that will lift you up as a business owner. That's what you're looking for. I'm done. My time is up. And that's you know what, Liz? That's your fault, because you didn't put enough time on the clock. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for compelled people. You want to surround yourself with them. Grab as many of them as you can. As workers, as friends. And that's what I have with my small business. People that are much smarter than me and have the same or even more drive than I do.